So, most Canadian food producers do know that the SFCR requires that they have a written recall procedure. But did you know that you are also required to conduct and document a recall simulation at least once a year? I'm your TAG Talks host, Lisa Lupo, and today I'm talking with TAG Executive Vice President of Regulatory Affairs and Managing Director of TAG Canada, Cameron Prince, about this requirement. Hello, Cam.
Hi, Lisa.
How are you doing today?
Great. How are you doing?
Just great. So, kind of excited to talk about the SFCR Part
Yeah.
4. The fact that it does require a recall simulation at least every 12 months, but it doesn't really provide a lot of detail beyond that. So, can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's an important topic because recall definitely is something that you hope you never are involved in, but many food companies eventually they need to be prepared in the event of a recall. So what that means under the Safe Food for Canadians regulations is that a recall simulation needs to be done every year. And that is, it doesn't give a lot of background really in the regulation. It just says essentially that it has to be effective at recalling a food. Another way of looking at it is in the GFSI and the BRC wording, they say must test the whole recall system. So that's the way to think about it. So unfortunately, what often happens is that companies misinterpret that and simply do a traceability exercise, which is just counting what's coming in, what's been produced, and what's gone out. And that's a numerical exercise, which is important and should be done every year for sure. But really, a mock recall or a recall simulation is much broader than that and must be designed to test the whole system. So yeah, that's essentially what it is. And there is guidance from CFIA, but I think companies struggle with this a little bit on how to set these up.
Okay. So you said that it's different than a traceability exercise. So what does it involve to do the whole system?
Well, when you do a recall simulation, it's really important to have as many people involved in the company as you can. And most companies will have a recall team pre-set and assembled. And there'll be a recall coordinator, and representatives from each branch of the company will be there. So typically that would be finance, quality assurance, food safety, sanitation, operations, some representation from management. So the whole communications, the whole breadth of the company, sometimes legal counsel, they should also all be involved in these exercises. So because they will be involved if the real thing were to happen. So you assemble your team, and it's really important to create a scenario, and we often call this a mock recall. So what we mean by that is you make up a scenario, and sometimes it's a good idea to keep that scenario known only to a few people involved, so that it really is new and surprising to those who are challenged to deal with it on the recall team. So it's always a good idea to plan ahead and be well prepared for these mock recalls. And you often create a scenario that is real to your company. So it must be about a product that you manufacture. It must be about a consumer that would be a real consumer in your case. And a typical scenario would be a consumer complaint, an illness associated with your product. And then as you work through that consumer complaint and what to do, how to respond, the exercise can also have what we would call inputs. So, change the situation up as you go through it. Get lab results come in. Maybe there's another consumer complaint. So it's a kind of an evolving story as you work through it. And so you've got your team together, you've got your scenario, you work through it, and you just test the whole system. So things will happen as you go through it. The media will call, so you'll have to respond to that. customers will say, well, what do I do with this product? Grocery stores will say, do we pull it off the shelves? And then you have to think also about contact to CFIA and reporting it and all of that stuff. So it really is, there's a whole lot of work to do in these mock recalls. And at the end of the day, you have to document all of this because you got to keep these records for 2 years.
Okay.
And so CFIA comes in to look at it. They're going to want to see that you've done the recall simulation and that you've kept good records. And another important part of this is to do a recap, or a hot wash is a term you often hear, is to review the whole thing and see where you could have done better, what mistakes were made, what your strengths and weaknesses are. So when you do it again, that it's that you get better every year.
Okay. So like you said, there is a lot to it, but that's what you need to do if you are actually in a recall. So if how can TAG help with the simulations, or just helping you ensure that your recall process is going to go smoothly?
Yeah, it's something that we actually really enjoy doing because it really provides really good support and help to companies so that they are ready if they're to have a recall. And it takes the panic out of the situation if people know what they're doing, and that's so important. If you're prepared, it's not as bad as you think. And TAG, we work with companies. We're often hired to conduct a mock recall. So we'll be in the background. We'll set the scenario with maybe 1 or 2 individuals. We'll get really creative with the scenario, and we'll think about different inputs and different ways to challenge everybody on the recall team. And then we help at the end by assessing what was done, what could be done better. We have a lot of good knowledge about best practices in recall, and we can bring those to the company as well and help them be better prepared in the future. And ultimately, in the real situation, TAG has a lot of experience with if it was to happen that you did have a recall, we can certainly assist in that, in terms of liaison with CFIA, health hazard evaluation, all those important parts of a recall.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, Cam, for all your insights and even detailing of some best practices for a successful and a compliant recall simulation, and to help ensure your recall goes as well as it can.
Yeah.
And thank you to the viewers once again for joining TAG Talks on current and impactful industry trends and events. Stay tuned to all things food safety and events by clicking subscribe, and then hit the bell to be notified when a new video comes out. Also, be sure to click Insights to subscribe to our weekly articles. Thank you again, Cam.
Thank you, Lisa.